we are live, okay, from UGC. So a very good afternoon to all of you. And this is Professor D.K. Shrivastava, Vice Chairman, University Grants Commission. I would like to just brief all of you. Today is the 5th day, that is the final day. And we are celebrating Shikshak Parv right from 5th September, and today is 9th September. On September 5, we have launched two portals. One is a research and
Recording
fellowship
in progress.
and e-Samadhan portal. There was also a panel discussion on motivated and energized teachers in higher education. Second day, that is 6th of September, there was an online workshop on capacity building of faculty members and technology enabled learning and then followed by online panel discussion on technology enabled learning in digital era. On day 3, that is 7th September, online panel discussion on preparing teachers for institutional development. Day 4, that is yesterday, 8th September, online panel discussion on role of teachers in holistic development of students. Today, on the final day of day 5, we have online panel discussion on teachers and national development. This is an honor to have such kind of debate with such professors and vice chancellors of the country who have maybe kindly consented to take a lead on different themes which are relevant not only as per the National Education Policy 2020, but also relevant to the larger society and the country. अभी हाल ही में स्वतंत्रता दिवस पर हमारे माननीय प्रधानमंत्री यशस्वी प्रधानमंत्री श्री मोदी जी ने पंच प्राण की बात की थी, जो कि 2047 की तैयारी की बात हो रही है। मैं आपकी जानकारी के लिए उसे रिपीट करना चाहूंगा। पहला संकल्प उन्होंने दिया, बड़ा संकल्प लें विकसित भारत का। दूसरा संकल्प था गुलामी से मुक्त विचार। तीसरा संकल्प विरासत पर गर्व। चौथा संकल्प एकता और एकजुटता। और पांचवा संकल्प नागरिकों का कर्तव्य। इसी परिप्रेक्ष्य में मैं सभी पैनल मेंबर्स का और चेयरपर्सन का ध्यान आकर्षित करना चाहूंगा कि इसी संदर्भ में नेशनल एजुकेशन पॉलिसी में जो फंडामेंटल प्रिंसिपल्स 22 फंडामेंटल प्रिंसिपल्स बनाए गए, उन प्रिंसिपल्स में एक है प्रिंसिपल नंबर 20 that talks about, I quote this, a rootedness and pride in India and its rich, diverse, ancient and modern culture and knowledge, systems and traditions. This is principle number 20. Today we have a very dignified and competent panel under the leadership of no one but a great scholar and my colleague Professor Shalini Bharatji, who is a Vice Chancellor of Tata Institute of Social Sciences, and she is chairing this session. And the panel members, so I welcome you, Professor Bharat, for this session and under your leadership. And the other panel members are Professor N.V. Varghese, Vice Chancellor, National Institute of Educational Planning and Administration, that is NIPA. Second panelist, Professor Ganga Prasad Prasain, Vice Chancellor, Tripura University. Professor Najma Akhtar, Vice Chancellor, Jamia Millia Islamia. And Professor Ami Upadhyay, Vice Chancellor, Baba Saheb Ambedkar Open University, Ahmedabad. मेरी अपेक्षा है कि प्रोफेसर भरत के नेतृत्व में ये जो डिस्कशन है आज का नेशनल लेवल जो पैनल डिस्कशन है, थीम हमारा है टीचर्स एंड नेशनल डेवलपमेंट। इसमें मैंने संक्षेप में आपको बताया है और मैं आशा करता हूं कि अगले 1 घंटे में ये पैनल पूरे राष्ट्र को एक संदेश देने का प्रयास करेगा और वो सफल होगा। धन्यवाद। ओवर टू प्रोफेसर शालिनी भरत जी।
Thank you so much, Professor Shrivastava, and thank you for addressing us. And I would like to welcome everyone the final day of Shikshak Parv, which UGC has put together. I'd like to thank UGC, first of all, for creatively thinking about a week-long program and for inviting me and my co-panelists to do this honors on the final day. As already said, we have a very eminent panel today in the form of Professor N.V. Varghese, Professor Ganga Prasad Prasen, Professor Najma Akhtar, and Professor Ami Upadhyay. It is widely acknowledged that teachers are nation builders who nurture and guide young minds to become the future citizens of a country. It is not just for education for themselves, but education for the country. Teachers prepare children and young people for their roles as aware and responsible citizens, as sensitive and caring individuals, as confident and self-assured minds will make their country proud. In that sense, I would say teachers are like the proverbial kumhar or potters who shape and mold the clay like children and youth into confident individuals ready to take on the world. Under the guidance and tutelage of qualified and sensitive teachers, young minds flourish to become competent and capable individuals, contributing to a world order that is inclusive and equitable. We all would agree that education means more than just learning. It means inculcation of moral precepts, imbibing of civic values, imparting of cultural sensitivities, and touching that inner chord that inspires one to be a good human being, to respect and appreciate diversity and differences, to honor and uphold the constitutional values, principles, and duties. Teachers' role is therefore a multifaceted role and is fundamental to building a nation. Everything that our Honorable Prime Minister has talked about as the Panch Pran, I think are somewhere or the other touched by the teachers and their teaching. One of the many important roles of teaching is also to make young people to think for themselves, to think independently and critically, to learn to take risks and not back out from taking ownership and responsibility when actions fail to materialize as planned. It is such self-confident, sensitive, mature, and risk-averse students who make for citizens of great nations. It is often said that the best hope of a nation lies in its children and young people, and teachers are among the greatest influence in their lives, of course, in addition to their parents and the wider extended family. Everywhere, national leaders and elected governments pin great hope on the formal education system and educational policies for achieving their national goals. The role of teachers, therefore, becomes immensely crucial by virtue of this. It's also, therefore, important for governments to invest in teachers, in hiring them in adequate numbers, first of all, and then in improving their working conditions and in continuously training and upgrading their skills, which is very, very crucial in enabling teachers perform their roles adequately. Dr. S. Radhakrishnan, in whose honor we celebrate Teachers' Day, believed that teachers must be the best minds in the country, for they are the ones who hold the power of shaping our future. Therefore, the true homage to his memory would be to invest in teachers and teaching. With those few words, I would like to begin this panel discussion on teachers and national development with four very eminent panelists from the space of higher education in the country. As already has been explained, each panelist will get about 10 minutes to share their thoughts on the topic of today's panel discussion. And hopefully we will have some time towards the end to open the floor for some question and answers, and maybe some open discussion as well. So let me begin by inviting Professor Varghese of NEPA to begin this panel discussion and to share his thoughts. Over to you, Professor Varghese, for 10 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Shalini. Professor Srivastava, Professor Shalini, Professor Ganga Prasad, my dear friend and colleague, former colleague, Professor Najma Akhtar, and Professor Upadhyaya. It is indeed a great pleasure, and I consider it to be a proud privilege to getting an opportunity to share my thoughts on this issue. Friends, it is a new era that we see in education. After 34 years, we find a new policy is coming, a lot of expectations and a high level of aspirations are already energized in the country. When we talk about higher education and its role in national development, or higher education teachers and their role in national development, first thing that I would like to say is that higher education teachers play an important role in the intellectual, economic, cultural, and social development of the country. That is in different ways, and that is what I'll try to explain in the next remaining 8 or 9 minutes. I think one of the major role that higher education teachers and higher education institutions played is in terms of facilitating national development. And it is very important to see that the national development is the sum total of contributions made by intellectuals, thinkers, and planners. I make them 3 distinct categories, and the role that the universities are playing to do that. Perhaps if you look at the teachers in the medieval period, or if you look at the higher education experts or intellectuals in the medieval period, they were peripheral to the idea of national development. They were peripheral to the idea of development, although intellectual contributions were substantial. And when it comes to industrial revolution, what one finds is that there is a lot of change that we find in terms of the role of the universities, the role of the university teachers, perhaps not only university teachers, the role of the teachers in general, and you find that this change is from an intellectual thinking processes and procedures to practical orientation, or universities became places to produce skilled workforce, and it became the training ground for the industrial revolution and the basis for that. This is a dramatic change that we find from the medieval period in terms of the intellectual contributions and in terms of the practical orientation that we can think about the educational institutions are playing. But in the post-independence period, especially in the developing countries, the role that is played by the teachers is very different. I think I will try to see this in 2-3 different ways. The first one I feel is that the greatest contribution that teachers made, universities made, and higher education institutions made in the post-independent period, the developing countries, is in terms of indigenizing development. This is not adequately highlighted in many places. When I talk about indigenizing development, there's 2 dimensions: indigenizing development in general, and secondly, indigenizing educational development. What does it mean to indigenize development? The universities and the teachers are the store places for keeping the traditions intact, transferring the tradition to the next generation. And therefore, there is a lot of meaning in saying that indigenizing development, because each country in the post-independence period tried to develop their own design of development, their own process of development, and they try to see that these development models are developed rather than accepting blindly the Western models of development, since especially many countries who got independence were actually colonies, So moving away from the colonial past to a national development process also meant indigenizing development. It meant developing designs of development. And India is a classic example. If we look into the 5-year plan process and procedures that were adopted, and we find that designing development, preparing plans for development, and also facilitating the process of development, that is one of the major roles that was played by higher education teachers, and the capacity development that has taken place and the analytical capacities that were developed was one of the contributing factors for the development of most of the developing countries. There may be defects, there may be limitations, but this role, both in intellectual terms and in practical terms, cannot be denied. And universities can be proud of that role that is played, and university teachers can be proud of the role that they have played. Indigenizing educational development, especially higher education teachers and the universities, played an important role in planning and designing the educational system, especially of the school education system, although this does not mean that universities were not planned by the university teachers. So there are 2 or 3 areas which are very important to see this indigenization of the development, especially educational development, took place. Firstly, in terms of teacher training. Many countries could not train the teachers because the language of instruction was very different. And therefore, there was a process of developing indigenization meant development of local curriculum or indigenous curriculum or national curriculum, development of teachers. And especially in many countries, not in India, you find that expatriates were the dominant force of teaching, and also in the dominant force in the administrative setup. They were replaced by the national teachers, and that was also a process of indigenization. And if you go to some of the African countries, you'll find that in the 1960s and 70s, the major slogan at that point is Africanization of development. Similarly, Asianization of development. Similarly, in the Gulf countries, we find it. Similarly, in Indonesia and Malaysia and many other places, we find that, this process of development is certainly an important dimension. How do we think as a nationalist? How do we think in indigenous terms? And that is the role that is played by our teachers. Although many of the first generation teachers were trained abroad, but they try with their training and skills that they acquired and the competency they acquired, they try to translate their competencies and the roles that they have got. Their intellectual capacities were translated to transform the thinking process in the national context. I think that is the major role that the teachers have been playing. Later, what we find is that the role universities play two important roles, one in the knowledge production and the other one in the knowledge transaction. And the role in the knowledge production has undergone dramatic change when institutions and countries are changing from the national development to global development, or linking the development to the global context and the globalization process. Now we are not producing for national entities only, we are also producing for the global good, and we are also talking about the global production of or development of global citizens. So this has dramatically changed the earlier role that teachers used to play, earlier role the universities used to play in the process of development. And this has dramatically changed. Many knowledge production has taken place, and knowledge production is the leading dimensions of development, economic development and social development, how the knowledge is produced and how the knowledge is distributed, how the benefits of the knowledge production and the knowledge-based production is distributed becomes one of the important dimensions of development in all countries. When people talk about widening inequalities in the development, the knowledge becomes the basis for that. The teachers and the higher education institutions play a very important role. But the basic question that one is asking, when you come to the universities and the role of the teachers, what do you want to do? You want to remain a status quoist, or you want to promote radicalism, not in the bad sense, radical thinking in the process, That is where the universities should have safe spaces of intellectual discourses, whether the teachers promote that or whether the teachers stop that, whether the vice chancellors permit that or the vice chancellors put constraints on developing intellectual spaces for discourses which are independent and autonomous, both for the students and for the teachers, So that becomes one of the important dimensions. And I think if I had to look closely in the present context, the major, apart from the knowledge production and the contributions that the university is trying to see, that this is a stage of massification of higher education in India. And we are moving through the new policy, we are moving towards universalization of higher education. And one of the unique features of this development throughout the world is that the diversity, the student diversity is increasing. The teachers remain in the system for 35 or 40 years, whereas the students remain only for 3 years or 4 years. And what is happening is that a forced structure that is created or that is regimented by the teachers, and they urge to change this by the new generations of students who are coming. This is the tension that is taking place in the universities. This is the new tension that is emerging as a result of the widening diversities. So the important question is that how teachers respond to this, how teachers take their responsibility in addressing the issues of diversity, in addressing the issues of the problems or challenges faced by students belonging to the disadvantaged groups, whether it is socially disadvantaged, economically disadvantaged, or religiously disadvantaged groups. That becomes important. So therefore, I will feel that in the context of diversity, the challenge for the teachers is to move from elite existence to democratic reconfiguration. I'll repeat it, from elite existence to democratic reconfiguration. And that is what it means when a system is massifying. That is what it means when a system is universalizing, And I think to come out of this, basically what is needed is that my reading of the situation when we have the empirical studies conducted in the universities is that universities have become victims of analysis paralysis. That is the biggest danger that teachers face. That's the biggest disease that higher education institutions face. The analysis paralysis, the incapacity or non-competency of our graduates to develop an argument, the non-competency of our graduates to use information and develop an argument, that becomes an important. Therefore, I feel that the changed circumstances, the teacher's role, I will sum up by saying that developing critical thinking. Second, criticality, developing criticality. Third one, empathy. And the last one I'll say is that trust in society. What is losing every day in most of the societies is trust, and trust in yourself, trust in society, and trust in political parties, trust in administration. So there is a crisis that is developing, a crisis of trust, and how the teachers will be in a position to contribute to reinforce the trust in the right way so that they contribute to the national building process. Thank you, madam. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Varghese. You really have given a lot of thought, and I think you have connected what has happened in the medieval times to up till now, and what kind of changes we are seeing in the space of higher education. I won't repeat what you've said, but maybe connect the dots a little later once we have heard our second panelist, Professor Prasen. So Professor Prasen is Vice Chancellor of Tripura University. Over to you, Professor Prasen.
Thank you. Namaskar. Good afternoon. Respected Professor D.K. Srivastava ji, Honorable Vice Chairman UGC, Professor N.B. Varghese, Honorable Vice Chancellor, National Institute of Educational Planning and Administration, Professor Najma Heptullah, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Jamia Millia Islamia, Professor Ami Upadhyay, Vice Chancellor, Baba Saheb Ambedkar Open University, and our distinguished chairperson of the session, Professor Shalini Bharat, Director, TISH, Mumbai, and my fellow colleagues here. Yes, before I start speaking about today's topic, under the leadership of our Honorable Vice Chairman D.K. Srivastava ji, we are celebrating Shikshak Parv, and the topic which has been chosen today is the role of teacher in national building. Before I give my opinion, I would like to quote a important ideas from Maharishi Arvinda. Quote, teachers are the clever gardeners of the nation culture. They fertilize the roots of the rituals and by their own labor, irrigate them and convert them into power. The real builders of the nation are teachers of the country. So, the development of a country, the progress of a country in terms of economic development, educational development, political development, or we should say in all-round development, the role of teacher cannot be minimized. The teacher play a very, very important role in the development of a nation. We all agree with this point. The ministry of education is the teacher. The teacher is not only the builder of the personality of the student, but also the builder of the nation. In layman language, we understand that teacher teach the student, but actually it is not. The scope of the teacher's career, teacher's profession is very, very wide, as it was also narrated by Professor N.B. Varghese, who has connected from the medieval time to till the date. The embodiment of the nation lies in the citizen, and the development of a nation, the role of teacher is very, very important, because teacher is a person who shapes the future of citizens, and the citizen are our today's student, because we all know that the students of today are the responsible citizens of tomorrow. So what type of education, what type of knowledge, what type of discipline, moral education we impart to our student, that will reflect when they will become the citizen of this country. Since the time immemorial, the importance of the teacher has been praised only because of knowledge imparted by them. But even today, teachers can shape the future of the country by building the future of the student, and also by the same devotion. Apart from education, it is the responsibility of the teachers to make the students to whom they interact every day, make them aware of the responsibilities related to social life, political life, economic life, as well as making them capable of a building of the society. In future, when these students who are taught by teachers in college and university play a very, very important role in the development of the society. So the most important component in the education system is teacher. Of course, the role of guardian, the role of society, the role of government, the role of stakeholder is also important, but the most significant important goes to the teacher's contribution. The desire, aspiration, and objectives of any society which has witness to fulfill through education depend on the teacher. It is the responsibility of the teacher to fulfill the wishes and aspiration of a nation. Therefore, according to famous educationist Forville, education is such a process which illuminates the inner quality and powers of the student. Only a skilled, trained, experienced, devoted teacher can identify the inner quality of the student and which ultimately contribute for the development of the nation. Without a teacher, this task of development is incomplete. And personality is the name of a comprehensive characteristic of the whole behavior of any student. In the modern era, it is not enough to develop only the inner power of the student, but also the social, political, economic, and all-round development. We all know that we are social animal, and it is the responsibility of the teacher to make ourselves, our student, friendly to the society. It is the teacher who acquaints the individual with the ideas, values, humanities in the society. What are the important duties and rights of a person towards the society and how to use them properly are the things which are taught by the teacher to the student. A teacher purifies these basic tendencies, guide students, and also control them. And ultimately, when they are guided properly by the teacher, these students become the patriotic citizen of this country. The teacher impart education on various professions and make them capable, who after getting education, who after completing education from college, university, and other education institution, discharge their duties towards family, society, and ultimately to the country as a whole. If the students of this country are self-reliant, then it will always be helpful in the progress and program of the country. We are talking about self-reliant, Atmanirbhar Bharat. So to make ourselves Atmanirbhar, self-reliant in the field of education, we the teachers have to mold our students. And also as per the NDP 2020, our role has become very, very important and our responsibilities are now manifold. Therefore, I would like to conclude by saying that it is the ultimate duty of the teacher to develop the qualities of an individual citizen, to make them ideal citizen through education, so that they means students to whom we interact every day can understand their duties, their right properly, and which make them ultimately a patriotic citizen. And this will help in the building of our nation so that we can compete in the field of education also with global universities. Thank you and namaskar.
Thank you so much, Professor Prasen. I think you talked a lot about teachers' role in making students what they are supposed to be as aware and sensitive citizens of tomorrow's. I would now like to invite Professor Najma Akhtar, Vice Chancellor, Jamia Millia Islamia, to make her contribution. Over to you, Professor Najma.
Thank you. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay. So I begin by thanking the Vice Chairperson of UGC, Professor Srivastava, Professor Shalini Bharat, and all other speakers, Professor N.V. Varghese, who was my not only a friend but also my earlier Vice Chancellor, and Professor Ganga Prasad ji, Ganga Prasad Prasen, Professor Amib Upadhyay, ladies and gentlemen who are listening today, a very good afternoon. At the onset, I think I take this opportunity to thank Professor Shalini Bharat and Professor Shivasta for inviting me to such an important panel discussion, the role of teachers in nation building or national development. It is indeed a moment of great pleasure for me to share my thoughts on this important topic, which happens to be the need of the hour. Needless to say, education is a process of enlightenment and empowerment of individuals for achievement of better and high quality of life. The education commissions, including new education policy, National Education Policy 2020, regards quality, competence, character of teachers to be the most significant factor influencing the quality of education as a whole and its contribution to national development. In view of this, one can appropriately say that panel theme is of great importance and relevance. A nation is built by its citizens, and citizens are molded by teachers who are rightly considered the makers of a nation. Since the world of tomorrow will be born from the school of today, and teachers become the true builders of the nation. They are the real agents of change. They develop ability to cope with a world that is changing very fast every moment. The teachers have a role of crucial importance in building and development of the nation. They illuminate and develop the inner and outer powers of the students. As well-wishers, friends, character builders, and counselors, they prepare their students for future life. The NEP 2020 underlines the role of teachers along with their desired attributes for nation building. The teacher's role is fundamental to national development. We all know that. And they make excellent use of education as an instrument for social, economic, and political reform in the nation. NEP 2020 puts the teachers at the center of the most needed fundamental reforms. Teachers' contributions to modernization and sustainable development is of vital importance. It is they who, through education, enable us to acquire knowledge of the previous civilization, participate in the present civilization, and create for the future civilization. Therefore, teachers contribute to national development by training the workforce of tomorrow and promoting an atmosphere of mutual respect and tolerance in different communities. They show diligence through their actual practice of tolerance. They are the role models. Their actual practice of tolerance, self-control, gentleness, and so on to reach the pinnacle of their profession. NEP 2020 re-establishes teachers as the most respected and essential members of the society. Since teachers are responsible for ensuring the implementation of educational policies, they contribute to the long-term community and social development by aiding students in discovering and developing their capacities. Teachers are essentially means of achieving academic objectives and fostering national development. It is the teacher who develops in students the feeling of nationalism and patriotism and achieves national objectives of education. Teachers play a significant role in the economic growth of ensuring that the next generation is well trained. They assist the future generation of national leaders to enable their abilities and their character. They are the primary catalyst for developing student skills, in fact, skill sets and competencies, and enhancing their employability and productivity. Teachers are the cornerstone of a robust educational system. In the present scenario, when nation is progressing at a very fast pace, teachers must inculcate in the students the feeling of national unity and patriotism, so they cooperate to make the nation prosperous and strong. It's a well-known fact that teachers play a crucial role in students' intellectual and academic development. In the age of Google innumerable online resources, the teacher acts as a facilitator, a friend, philosopher, and guide, and also the pathfinder. No attempt at national transformation is imaginable without the active participation of teacher. A nation is constructed by the people, whom teachers shape and had shaped earlier also. In addition to the classroom instruction, a teacher's responsibility include the development of individuals, governments, and society by maximizing their potential. Individual teaching attributes, his personality or her personality, qualification, and professional competence are the cornerstone of national education development. Flourishing nations, flourishing national development, and prosperous society all begin with the teachers. The fate of nation is shaped in classrooms as also outside the classrooms, where teachers nurture and coach the pupil to become responsible citizens. And this is very important, that what we are bringing up should be national responsible citizens who have to, because they have to shape the nation and its quality of life. Changes in the educational paradigm in our country, as well as increased interdependence and interconnectedness for a global, from a global point of view on development, have placed unprecedented demands on teachers' professional growth. We cannot conceive of reform in education and proper development of nation without teachers' professional development, in line with the present requirement and demands. As and some examples we can have seen during the COVID pandemic, when teachers had to suddenly change from the face-to-face mode to a distance mode, and they were able to do it reasonably good. But many training programs also preceded before the teachers started this change from online to offline, from offline to online. Teachers need to boost their creativity and competence, as well as contemporary demands, which are growing every day due to the paradigm shift in the domain of teaching and learning. Regular trainings and research support for in-service training is a must, and NEP has taken care of this. The challenges, as we know, before a teacher of today are rapid knowledge landscape change and machine learning, artificial intelligence, big data, and so many new things in every area. Also, multidisciplinary nature of education, which was never there earlier of this level. Another thing is the changing employment scenario. We are not going to churn out degree holders, but we have to churn out people with skills to use the degrees and the ability to change according to the needs. Another thing is the need for creative imagination, not only in teachers, but also they inculcate in the students. Students have to be tomorrow have to be very creative and free to ask questions and give answers. Flexible and innovative learning outcome based curriculum. The curriculum was never so varied or so modern as it is now. Global and local competition. So now it's not only within India, within only our development of our nation, but also our development of this nation competing with other nations and coming out as the Vishwa Guru. It is essential for government at all levels to ensure that teachers are adequately prepared to face the unexpected challenges in a quickly changing country like India, so that the crisis can be changed into wealth of opportunities. Like for example, in COVID, we have learned so many lessons, and now it's not only distance education programs which are going on, but online programs also, besides those who are in the classrooms or informal situations. For national progress, increasing investments in human capital, which is teachers, are required. And this is a very essential part. And I'm sure that the government is looking at it to remain, so that he's remain committed to students throughout their lives and keep on improving daily on daily basis in his knowledge. It is essential that the best of minds should be attracted as teachers. Can we not make this teaching profession more glamorous, and people, so that the students can say that I want to go into teaching and get into those courses where I end up as a teacher? If people are adequately educated, they will not wait for employment. Instead, they will engage in successful projects like this is economic emancipation, improve their surroundings, growth, and liberate themselves from poverty and unemployment. They have to be able to help themselves. With great hope of selfless services of teachers for the robust growth of our beloved nation, I thank you all for this opportunity and talking to you.
Thank you, Professor Najma. We will come back to some of the ideas that you have shared with us after we've heard Professor Ami Upadhyay, the last panelist, but not the least. Over to you, Professor Ami Upadhyay, Vice Chancellor of Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar Open University, Ahmedabad.
Thank you very much, Shalini ji. First of all, I'm very thankful to UGC for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts on teachers and national development. Honorable educationist here, Professor Srivastav ji, Professor Shalini ji, Professor Verghese ji, Professor Ganga Prasad ji, Professor Najma ji, and all the academicians witnessing this panel discussion today. Congratulations to UGC for the wonderful idea that talks about Guru Parva. गुरु एक ऐसा अस्तित्व है, पर्व है, जो व्यक्ति के अस्तित्व और व्यक्तित्व को सेलिब्रेट करने के लिए एक तक देता है, अपॉर्चुनिटी देता है. Whenever we have come across two biographies, autobiographies, I doubt whether anyone will be there where they have not mentioned about their teachers. Rather than repeating what my co-panelists spoke about, I would a little bit take a turn. We'll talk about something a little bit different. I'm reminded of a book that I read years back. Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji, when he was here as a Chief Minister, he wrote a wonderful book in Gujarati. The title was Kelave Te Kelavani. Here he said that whatever educates, that is education. So first of all, it is very, very important to look at a teacher as an educator, because when we call teacher, maybe a little bit limited role it might be. When we talk about educator, it is boundaryless. So it is about education, educating. What exactly education does? शिक्षा वैचारिक विश्व को एक शेप देती है. It shapes the thought process. When we talk about nation, it is social, cultural, historical, maybe a group, collective consciousness of people. Be it cultural, social, educational, historical, economical. At the end of economical also, all these things are in roots. So everything is shaped, moved further with the thought process of an individual. So the best role that teacher plays is as a shaper of thought process. He or she shapes the thought process. I know such a wonderful thing that Radhakrishnan just said, that the best minds should be there as teachers. I'll go a little further. If the best don't enter into it by any reason, they have to make themselves best. They have to cultivate their own minds to be the best. When we talk about teacher, educator, understanding of a teacher, what Chanakya talks about, Radhakrishnan talks about, or Vivekananda talked about education, educator. We have a Gujarati poet who talks of, beautifully he writes, Bija kashaye rangni tane lagire khabar jo hot, tu pan vane che vastra tu pan kabir hot. It means every weaver does not become kabir. In the same way, an appointment letter of a teacher does not make him or her a teacher. It is the value system, what he lives by, the example that he or she sits in the classroom in front of the students. That really what makes an individual a teacher. परिवर्तन का जो परिवाहक होता है, वो शिक्षक होता है. Now the role that teacher plays will start with very important, which is economic growth. A nation, the development of nation is known by per capita income and GDP. I'll share briefly few data, facts. Now, research and innovation play a very vital role in national development. And generally, innovation and research, they are with the education system, and teacher really encourages students. Teacher gets involved in research and innovation. Now, the facts and figures that I'm sharing here is, now look at US GDP share 24.14, and their publication share is 20. China 18.62, publication share is 12.8. Japan 5.18 GDP and 4.8 publication. Germany 4.43 GDP, 5.3 publication. United Kingdom 3.35 GDP, 5.6 publication. India 3.33 GDP, 3.4 publication. There are many more facts and figures. This way, GDP, economic growth, and research innovation, they go hand in hand. And in research and innovation, teacher plays very, very, very vital role. Second role that it plays very important is development of virtues, social and national integration. He or she teaches it, that be it be NCC, NSS, extension activities, everywhere, the teacher's role is to make students involved in the social responsibility, make them realize about it. Now you see, it is very, when we talk about national education policy, why it is very close to our heart, or why it is so important, because a person who has very high self-esteem can only contribute to the society. Till the time one doesn't have that high self-esteem or certain confidence, will not move further with the contribution side. National education policy boosts a kind of self-image of an individual in India, and education plays very vital role there. Somewhere I feel that when we talk about values, ethics, and everywhere, our cultural heritage, the role of a teacher is of a gardener, not of a watchman. For example, there is a garden. If a person continuously, no one should enter into it, no one should pluck the flowers, the growth of the garden, the growth of plant stops there. The role of a teacher is like a gardener. It is not all the time I'm preoccupied that flowers should not be plucked. No, I'm more concerned, I'm more involved in gardening, helping the flowers to bloom, blossom. So somewhere I think that is the role of a teacher. When we talk about national development, the people, Shiv Khera has rightly said that total quality people. It is not the infrastructure all the time. It is not all the time latest technology and machine, but most of the time it is total quality people. They play very vital role in the national building. And when we talk about total quality people, they come out from the educational institutes. It is the teacher who make people, who convert people into total quality people. So that quality adjective is added. That is the role of a teacher, an educator. When we talk about national development, at the time fostering pride for cultural, social, historical heritage, a well-informed, well-read, well-aware teacher makes learners realize from where you come, what you have, not only as an individual, as a society, as a nation, what you have. And now you see, now you decide where you can go. It is very important at the same time that like Guru Dattatreya, a teacher, not only I'm limited, I'm the only teacher in the world. The true teacher guides the learner that there are many more teachers outside, many more gurus outside. Go and find out your gurus. Every event, every incident, every individual can be your teacher. This is what a teacher does. So that really opens the eyes of an individual. Be it be spiritual, be it be education, be it be economic, be it be business. The true teachers play a very vital role in the growth of an individual learners. And growth of individual learner ends into growth of a nation. I'm reminded, you know, after Second World War, when America took over Japan and Japan surrendered. But at that time, they did not allow Americans to take over education system. Public of Japan and Emperor Hirohito, they said education will be with us only. And so you see, within 10 years, they could boost, they rose like anything. After 20 years, we can see that completely that agrarian economy, they got converted into modern industrial giant. Then the vehicles, four-wheelers, all the machines of Japan, they were being used in America. Who did it? This is the education system, and this is what education did. The teacher prepares all-round personalities, not only gold medalists. They prepare everything. So this is something very important. I feel एक बीज है उसमें वृक्ष है और एक वृक्ष है उसमें बीज है. मेरे सामने एक विद्यार्थी बैठा है, वो स्व से समष्टि की ओर जा रहा है और वो समष्टि एक राष्ट्र बनने वाली है. मुझे लगता है ये समझ के साथ शिक्षक राष्ट्र का घड़तर करता है. It was really a pleasure to talk about the role of teacher in national building. I think I've stuck to my 10 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Padhyay. And listening to all the panelists, I was struck by the fact that there is something which was running across the theme for all the panelists everywhere. I mean, you first of all talked about the most expansive role of teacher, which is to, of course, impart education, but more importantly, to make the student and the individuals who sit before them or who are before them good human beings with trust and empathy, critical thinking, and truly futuristic in a way. And I'm struck by the fact that all of you talked about this and the fact that teachers are not working in silos or acontextual. I think everyone touched upon the NEP 2020 and the global role now the teachers play. I don't think we are now able to just say students for national development, but through that for true development in the globe, in the world around us. Also that we are in such a globalized world, and in changing circumstances, we cannot just talk about or limiting the teaching and teachers' role for a small boundary, as Professor Upadhyay also said that teachers' role as thought process, for enlightenment, and for making students aware about things that are happening. I was also struck by the fact that Professor Varghese talked about something very important, that teachers' role in indigenizing development and indigenizing education, and in that indigenizing educational resources, curriculum, and so on. And this is where I think Professor Upadhyay tried to sort of end by saying how in the context of Japan, they could see that when education was in the hand of the country, in the hand of the Japanese, how they shaped their society and how they shaped the development and their futuristic growth. So indigenizing has played a very important role. and not just, importing what was available outside the country. But in between, we heard about, how it is so important to have students who are all-rounded and who have, empathetic and humane personality, rather than only, what we think should turn out as robotic individuals. But I will not say too much, because everybody has heard. If there are, one or two questions, we could take that from the audience, or if there is anything which my co-panelists would like to illuminate further, or anyone would like to add to what has already been said. I would give the last 2-3 minutes for that, because we are running out of time and there are only 4 minutes left. So if there are any questions, we could take on those. I think somebody from the UGC would be there to unmute, or if they can mute themselves, I don't know. Yeah.
Paucity of time, but we will not be able to take up the questions.
Okay.
And all right.
Is there any other thought that of the panelists would like to share at this point in time?
Excuse me, Shalini ji.
Yes.
I will just, I started a sentence, but I could not finish it. Honorable Prime Minister, when he wrote a book, Kelve Te Kelavani, he has given one very beautiful example that when an automobile engineer, is not good, wo scooter kharab hota hai. When a civil engineer is not good, the construction kharab hota hai. Lekin when a teacher is not good, it spoils, it harms the whole society and nation. No, years back, I think this is something very close to the topic this example is. Thank you very much.
Yes, very well said that, we are talking about individual. That's why I said, teaching is not just about imparting education. It's about the moral precepts, the kind of moral compass we put into, individuals, or the receptiveness of that becomes possible. And somewhere we also guide students to, receive knowledge, which also allows them to be critical thinkers, as Professor Varghese said. And I think it's very important that we understand the role of teachers in making the students come out of this analysis paralysis, which I think is a very, very important goal to keep in mind. If we want students to be able to do critical thinking, but also have the capacity and the ability to analyze and bring out the criticality of whatever issues there are, only then I think innovation happens, and only then I think we give rise to newer ideas and newer thoughts. Otherwise it is only receiving of something and not putting it to good use. So I guess we have shared something which is common, and then we've also been able to look at what is the role of teacher in a very dynamic world, and not just national development, but through national development, development in the world itself. So with that, I think we are running out of time. Professor Varghese, would you like to add any more? I think you are muted, Professor Varghese.
No, Professor Shalini, thank you very much. The time is not in our favor, so I don't want to intervene anything. If there is any questions or clarifications, etc., I can go ahead. Yeah. Otherwise, not.
Yeah, you talked about indigenizing, education, indigenizing the teaching and so on. And I think you also would like to add, of course, indigenizing in a very big way the educational, resources, the teaching resources, which has happened over a long period of time in the last several decades, I think, which is also very critical to note. And teachers have played, of course, a most critical and central role in that.
Madam, my feeling is that a lot of things can be done without additional investment.
Yes.
Money is the problem, is a belief that is given to us by the colonial rulers and also by the donor community. They have forced us to believe that money is the problem.
Yes, and
and money is the solution. We are got into that trap. Not only this, in the developing countries in Africa and other places.
I think very well said. We are not tapping into the innate knowledge and what we already have, and making use of that first before we start talking about money all the time. I think very well said. And with that, we really are at the end of the panel
May
discussion. I valued. Yes, Professor Najma, very quickly.
In the end, from everybody's side, I would thank our Honorable Prime Minister for giving us a timely education policy which explains everything, and we are all at it now, trying to change according to the policies. So we have a guidelines, and we are very fortunate to have it.
And
Thank you.
with that guideline, and as Professor Varghese says, whatever we have, we first look into that and bring that to the level and shape. And this was a wonderful opportunity for all of us to share our thoughts on a very critical topic. Professor Srivastav, thank you for opening the.
Yeah. Okay. I will take a minute, Professor Bharat, and before I formally thank all of you, मैं कहना चाहूंगा कि देश अपार क्षमताओं, असीमित क्षमताओं और अपार संभावनाओं का देश है. Lot of possibilities, lot of potential, and as many panelists have highlighted that ये देश एकलव्य का है, जिसकी सीखने की अगर लालसा हो, किसी के मन में सीखना चाहता है, तो एक वो गुरु की कल्पना से ही, शिक्षक की कल्पना से ही आगे बढ़े. ये देश भारत का है जो कि अदम्य साहस का प्रतीक है, और ये देश ऐसा देश है जो कि आपदाओं को अवसर में बदल देने का है. और जैसा कि हमारे सभी पैनलिस्ट प्रोफेसर अख्तर ने भी कहा कि ये हमारे लिए अवसर है कि हम ये राष्ट्रीय शिक्षा नीति को एक विश्व में एक मॉडल बनाएं. तो विश्वविद्यालय अनुदान आयोग की तरफ से, हमारे अध्यक्ष की तरफ से और सभी लोगों की तरफ से मैं सभी पैनलिस्ट का धन्यवाद ज्ञापित करना चाहता हूं, आभार प्रकट करता हूं हमारी चेयरपर्सन प्रोफेसर शालिनी भरत जी का, जिन्होंने कि आज जैसे कहते हैं कि ऑल इज वेल इफ एंड इज वेल, तो आज का जो समापन ये वेबिनार है वो बहुत ही अच्छे तरीके से आपने संचालित किया, और इसके लिए विशेष रूप से आपका हम आभार देना चाहेंगे. प्रोफेसर वर्गीस, प्रोफेसर गंगा प्रसाद, प्रोफेसर नजमा अख्तर एंड प्रोफेसर अमी उपाध्याय ने बहुत अलग अलग तरीके से और बहुत ही पॉजिटिव तरीके से अपने विचार रखे. शायद मैं समझता हूं कि इन विचारों को और भी आगे बढ़ाया जा सकेगा और भी इसका विस्तार किया जा सकेगा. विश्वविद्यालय अनुदान आयोग भी इन सब बातों का संज्ञान लेगा और भी आगे चल करके हम इन्हीं थीम्स पर हम और भी गोष्ठियां आयोजित करेंगे. हम सभी लोगों का धन्यवाद करते हैं, सभी जो पार्टिसिपेंट्स हैं, जो विभिन्न जगहों से जो शिक्षक और विद्यार्थी या अन्य लोग जो जुड़े हुए हैं और कर्मचारी, उन सभी लोगों का हम आभार व्यक्त करेंगे. और अंत में विशेष रूप से प्रोफेसर शालिनी भरत जी का, वाइस चांसलर टाटा इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ सोशल साइंसेज का आभार व्यक्त